Fantastic. Welcome everyone back to the AU Core Technical Design Group meetings. This is our second ballot reconciliation meeting. We've got a couple more scheduled, but we've got also, I think, a lot to go through today. So I'm just going to get into that agenda now. So first up, we've got our usual business and updates. And also give a bit of a ballot update there, as well as our approval of minutes. And then we're going to go through and show the results of the electronic votes that went out with the block vote, and also the items that have been referred to telecom. So there's 3 of those, and they're coming up in this session as well. We've also tabled the request to revisit 2 of the previous decisions the technical design group has made. Ruben, your hand is up.
Yeah, look, just on that point, I need to leave at 11:30, unfortunately, Danielle. So I won't be in 30 minutes. So I wasn't sure if we could do that item before the block votes.
Sure,
Trying
we'll
to
do
postpone
that.
it to another meeting. Okay, thank you.
So we'll do our usual business and then we'll move on to the revisit question. Note that one of your items that is referred to telecom as well here, but
Yes, I was wondering
okay.
about that.
We'll give it a go. Okay. And then we will need to talk about what are the next things coming up for AU Core, our next meeting, and what the agenda is for that. And also do a quick refresher for those of us who are joining on what the block voting procedure is. And if we've got time, do any sort of Q&A on the process so far. So let's get into it then for approval of minutes and move through this one. Is someone happy to motion to approve the minutes of previous week? Or do people need some more time to review those?
I'll motion to approve them.
Thanks, Richard. Is anyone happy to motion to second that?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Michael. I'll launch our poll to approve the minutes. So go ahead and please select an option on the screen that's come up. If you're new and this is your first technical design group, please select abstain. And also if you weren't at that meeting, you can also please vote abstain. Just got a couple more people to pop in an option. Okay, great. I'll end that poll. So I'll share those results. So that motion has passed. The minutes have been approved. Thanks, everyone. And I'll just do a quick update and then we will move on to the query to revisit. I just do need to double check if Heath is on the line because Heath raised that. I don't think he's here yet. So, all right, let's go through updates. Okay, so updates. We're going to run through updates on every one of our ballot reconciliation meetings so we can see where we're at. We did in the previous TDG a fortnight ago talk about the fact that there are 166 items for the TDG to reconcile, we thought, but there was still some triaging from the co-chairs to go through those. That number's now dropped to 146, which is great. And from a triage side, we've got through around 74% of the issues overall. So there's only a little bit more to go before those can then be exposed to the group. In terms of reconciliation, as at this morning, the technical design group has voted on 85 issues, which is great. That's about 44%. And some of those already previously approved issues from the last TDG meeting a fortnight ago have been applied to AU Core. So there's about 19 of those issues are already in AU Core and more of those are on the way thanks to Douchey. And I'll just pop past that then. And In terms of updates, so where we're at, we've had our first ballot resolution meeting. We went through block votes 1 and 2, which approved 18 issues. We've had 2 conformance Fridays that are really working through the proposals for must support and obligation. And we're on to today, our second dedicated ballot meeting, where we're talking through the results of block votes 3 to 8. 45 of those issues have been approved and 3 have been referred to telecom. And so we're intending to discuss and approve those in this meeting. And then we've got the next couple of meetings, but I'll talk about those, I think, at the end of this one, to talk about what is happening in our next few meetings before we get to our face-to-face sort of hybrid day on May 16. Which I'll just give you a quick update on this one. There is, and I'll pop in the chat, the Eventbrite link. We are doing a whole day session on May 16 to do ballot reconciliation, which we hope is our final meeting on that. That's in Sydney. It is hybrid though. There's both a virtual and a face-to-face option. Can't promise though that the virtual will work. There may be some technical issues on the day. So if you can make face-to-face, that is much preferred. We do have the Zoom link available though for people to be able to dial in, if that works. So for our current numbers, we've got face-to-face, so 68 people have registered as of this morning. And from virtual, who will dial in, we've got 10 at the moment. Those are the numbers. So I think we're going to have some good attendance on that May 16 day. And with that, I think that's the rest of the updates. So we might move through now into talking about revisiting. Just need to check again if Heath is on the line yet. No.
Doesn't seem like it.
All right, we might
perhaps do the refer to telecom one first.
Yeah, let's do that.
Agenda.
All right. So, excuse me as I just whiz past a few slides to not this one. Oh no, you have 2. Here we go. So out of block vote, this was block vote 7, which was looking at the substantive changes around AU Core patient organisation, practitioner role, and those, I think AU Core organisation. One of the items was requested to be removed from the block and talked about in this meeting. And that item is 45050. Let's go have a look at that. And Ruben provided those points there on why he thought that that needed to come to the technical design group so we could discuss that prior to making a decision. So just put that up on the screen, and Liam, you're on the line, and Liam raised this issue. So I think you can also provide clarity on what you were asking for.
No problem. Yep.
Is that big enough for people, or should I go a little bigger?
Works for me.
Put the link in the chat too.
I consider.
Okay, great. So this one was titled the AU value sets for gender identity and pronouns. Do you want to just talk to that briefly, Liam?
Yep. So I guess it comes from a couple of angles. First, the most relevant one when I first raised it was that it wasn't clear how these value sets were to be used in the profile. And I think that's just because I didn't notice them in the snapshot invariance view. So that's where they're validated as an invariant that comes through from AU base. And now I've noticed that the validation issue's not really a problem, but it's still not super visible how they're applied in this profile. So that's kind of where I came from. I noticed the gender identity is in the profile specific guidance there, but the pronouns isn't. And it's also because there's a separate section where there's the gender identity concepts described outside of the profile specific guidance. So there's, I guess, 2 areas where that information could sit. And I don't know, I just found it a little confusing, but it could just be me.
Thanks, Liam. So the proposed resolution at the time was that the value sets are present in AU Core Patient in so much they're inherited from AU Base as the source of the localizations, and the inclusion is visible in the snapshot. And what isn't mentioned there, and it should, is it's also in the key elements view. So looking at the key elements view, there is a naming of those value sets in the short of the profile. And if you click on that element, it has in the comments what that requirement is for the value set, for gender identity and for pronouns here.
Okay.
So the suggested resolution was that the visibility for the pronouns value set could be improved by the addition of profile-specific implementation guidance, noting that that was already there for gender identity, but an equivalent could be provided for pronouns, so that it is also then on the under the profile-specific implementation guidance, which I'll just scroll down to here. So that was the proposed resolution.
Is there any opposition to having that information in the gender identity concepts area, similar to the way like sex at birth has some information there?
Yes,
just
although
above
that's an AU-based discussion, not an AU Core one.
Does that
I think
gender
there was
identity,
something about
no,
gender
the
identity in a section
narrative.
further up, Danielle. Yeah.
Yes, there is. Here.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that gender identity and related concepts narrative.
So this looks like it's sort of not quite at the level of terminology binding, I guess. But what we could say here is that these things, although it's using gender harmony or aligned with it, it does have some localizations applied in AU base, which AU Core leverages. Is that kind of what you're getting at, Liam?
Yeah, it was just because I guess when I read it, I was just like, there's a bit of difference between the way sex at birth is described. Like there's an actual extension that's been profiled, whereas that hasn't been done for pronouns and gender identity, possibly because there's invariance that exists that can assert that conformance.
The reason sex assigned at birth is profiled is to add more support, and you couldn't do that through these profiles because they're single element profiles. So there's no need to have an extension for pronouns because you're not doing anything different there.
Okay.
I
guess at a minimum, even if there was just a bit of profile specific guidance that referenced the pronouns value set, I think that at least make it more visible.
I think Danielle's suggestion of putting it under this profile specific guidance is a good idea.
All right.
So did we just want to?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to know what text we would add there in this resolution, Danielle. That was the second part of my reason for
the AU Core
pulling from the block.
Lifts from AU Base, basically. It's the same from AU Base as it is in AU Core because we brought that through, so it should be applied. So what should have been said in here is that this should be worked on and brought back to the technical design group to agree on what that guidance is. Because I think we should agree that we do want guidance, and then we can do what that is and bring that back to the technical design group.
Would
Can I-
that be
could-
under a different tracker item?
No, it would be under this one.
Could I?
Okay, so we.
Yes.
Sorry,
Could
go on,
I-
Liam.
Oh, this is Brett here. Could I?
Oh,
could I
sorry,
just?
Brett.
That's all right. I was just going to say, if it's an underlying AU base definitional thing, we could push that through to the firework group and let them
It's both.
handle that. Yeah.
Because that still doesn't add profile specific implementation guidance
Yeah,
to an
for the
AU core profile.
Sure.
So I think in AU core, we do want profile specific implementation guidance. And part of that will be getting that agreed for what goes in AU base in the firework group and then bringing that back into AU core to go, this is it. Is this suitable? And when we agree, putting it in or making changes.
So
Should we agree?
So does this become a shared ballot issue for the two groups then?
I thought that we would raise a separate one for AU base, that like where there is one,
Okay.
the agreement with the firework group is that if that's what AU core wants, that we would then raise the AU base one, which means in AU core, we're saying, do we want to do this? If we do, we've made that decision, this is what we want. We raise the AU base issue and take it to the firework group.
Sounds fair. Cool.
And has someone raised their hand? No, they've put them down. So that would be how we would then resolve that. And that would go into R1. Because it's not suggested to defer it past R1. Any other comments on the issue?
So could I just procedurally ask, so does this mean removing it from the block and actually writing that guidance up?
It's already removed from the block. That's why we're on the telecom. So the block is approved.
Nice.
This is removed. We're making a decision in this technical design group meeting on how do we want to progress this item. If we do think anything should change, what should that be? And then just say, will we do that?
Can I want to describe something. So at the moment, we've got some information under the gender identity and related concepts, and then we've got more information under the profile specific implementation guidance.
Yes.
And the idea is that we leave the gender identity and related concept stuff alone with its current level of abstraction, and we, through a process, will eventually get some further clarification in the profile specific implementation guidance. Is that sort of where we're at the moment?
Yes. Yeah, it is.
I mean, I'm keen to hear other views on this, but I think that gender identity and related concepts section could benefit from a very short statement which says the gender harmony models or extensions have been further localized in AU base and adopted in AU core. Reading it as it is at the moment, people can't be blamed for thinking that we are leveraging gender harmony as is.
I agree with that. Are there any objections to adding a statement to that effect in pronouns and gender identity?
I don't object. I think the further clarification is going to be helpful.
Yep, sounds good.
So procedurally, that would be adding a profile-specific implementation guidance on individual pronouns, similar to gender identity, which needs to be worked through with the firework group on AU base, and adding a statement on localization, gender identity, and pronouns in this section.
Yep.
All right. So that is, I guess, the option on the table. Are there any further comments or amendments to that, or should we motion if we're happy to approve that?
I I presume similar changes will be expected in some other resources. Is that correct?
No.
Not for this tracker item.
Oh, not for this tracker item. What I'm wondering is gender identity and related concepts. Does that section appear as part of any other profile?
No, not in AU Core.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep, this is unique. All right. Is someone happy to motion that we approve what we just described? Which I can re-summarize if everyone wants. Ruben?
I move, Ruben. Yep.
Is anyone happy to second that?
I'm happy to. Liam?
Thanks, Liam. Now, we don't have any electronic vote set up for this one. So what we're going to do first is ask people to raise their hands using Zoom reactions if you want to object to making that change. Okay, no one's raised their hands. So I'll ask people then if they want to abstain, please raise your hand using Zoom. Okay, that count's still just going up. We've currently got 7 people who are abstaining. 8. All right, we'll take that as a count of 8 people. And then the rest approve. I'll confirm what those numbers are. We've got an AI on here, so we'll count that as 40 people minus the AI, minus the host, minus 8. So I think leaves us 31. Approve. And therefore the motion is passed. Thanks, everyone. Now, Alicia, your hand is still up. Did you have a comment you wanted to make? No. Okay, you've popped that down. Thank you. All right, so before we move any further, since we're on this topic, I'll just check if Heath is on the line again. No. All right, so shall we move to the other refer to telecon, or shall we address the revisit question, which was tabled for this session with advance notice?
Look, given that it's Heath that's actually raised this, I'd prefer that we revisit with him here. Also, I only have about 5 minutes left, and we might not get to it in that time, Danielle. So, if it's okay with you, I'd rather do the other refer to telecon one.
No problems. We will move this one then to our next ballot meeting, which is intended to be the 10th of May. If you can make that, I'll confirm that you and Heath can attend that one.
I can.
All right. So let's move to the other medication, the other refer to telecom. So there's this one from 45165, medication information. So let's go to that one. So this one is editorial in nature. It is referring to the fact that there's a section called medication information in the general guidance page, and that it seems very specific and it would be better placed in its own separate HTML page, which could then be linked to the meds profile. So what is being referred to is this part. So there is only one page that is, I guess, all the AU core guidance, and the others are material around things like AU CDI, but this has guidance. And it includes here a section called medicine information. And this section has quite a bit of information on medications and representing them in FHIR. The proposed resolution was that this was a non-persuasive argument for moving medicine information from general guidance page onto its own page, that In principle, proposed changes should be supported by clear rationale, and opportunities for restructuring may be considered in future versions as the guidance page evolves. Please note that each medication profile does include a link to the medicine information section. So I guess that part wouldn't change. So if we pop to a profile, there is a link underneath profile here that goes to that. So that goes to the medicine information page. So Ruben, did you want to talk to the points for bringing this to the technical design group?
Yeah, look, it's pretty straightforward, I think, and you're right, it is editorial. I think, first of all, this is a lot of quite detailed medication information, and I'm not sure the general guidance is the right place for it. So that's the first point. The second one is, I guess, a discoverability point. If you hover over the guidance tab, if you didn't see medications there on its own, you might not know that there was guidance for medications under the general section. And given the extent of this guidance and its likelihood for increasing in future as we consider other medications, coding systems, and whatever else, I think it would make the IG a lot better and improved from a discovery and readability perspective if it had a standalone page. So it was on that basis that I requested it be removed from the block and discussed further. I think the only resolutions here are we keep it where it is, or we agree to move it into a standalone guidance page under the guidance tab. Happy to take questions.
I have a question. This looks sensible for medications, for medicine. I'm wondering what else would we do something similar for going forward? And if we can anticipate that now, that might affect what we choose to do, but maybe we can't see what else we do something similar with in the future.
US Core had a couple of things which might come into focus for us in future versions of AU Core, but for R1, I don't think there's anything else at this stage.
US Core has, assuming we're looking at that, we're treating guidance there. They have a general guidance, and then they have use case based separate pages. Their general guidance is quite massive, actually, with lots of different things, including narrative and language support and so forth. And they separate out guidance on use cases. So if we ever dealt with clinical notes in AU Core and we're following a US Core pattern, we would have a similar, we might adopt that. So that's some potential future for us.
Thank you for that context.
Should we, because I'm not sure there is further discussion we need, just in the interest of time, are we happy to put a motion on the table?
I am. I'd like to move that it become a standalone guidance page.
Okay. Is someone happy to second that that we move out that section medicine information to its own page?
I'll second that, Richard.
Richard? Okay. And now I'll ask people if you want to oppose that, please raise your hands using the Zoom reactions. Okay, there are two. I'll just give it a tiny bit more. Okay.
Do the people opposing want to say why they consider it a poor idea?
Brett, I think you were one. Did you want to comment on that?
I just think it's unnecessary.
Yeah, same.
Okay, so Brett and Sanjeev think it's unnecessary to make that change. Okay, so we've got two in oppose. Can you please now raise your hands if you're choosing to abstain? Okay, that count is still going up. Okay, that looks like we have 18 people abstaining. And we'll take that total number so you don't have to watch me painfully do maths after the meeting. But that motion has therefore passed. So we will be moving that onto its own page under the drop-down list. Okay. So that's Ruben's items. Done.
Thank you all. And on that note, I must leave the meeting.
Okay.
Let me know if there are any actions or updates for me, Danielle. I'll be in touch. Thank you all.
All right, will do. Thanks, Ruben. Okay, so back to where we were, which was, so we've dealt with 2 of the refer to telecom, and we'll deal with the last one very shortly, unless you have to go somewhere now, Richard.
Sorry, what was that question?
Are you still able to stay on the line for the rest of the meeting?
Yes, I am still able. I have no need to leave soon.
All right. We might do, I guess actually let's just, because we've got that flow going, do the refer to telecom that you'd raised, which is 43850, which is removing the mandatory requirement to support rev include of provenance, which I'll go. Okay. So remove mandatory requirement to support rev include of provenance. This was originally a topic from our very first kind of September meeting last year, that we ported out from the GitHub, which was to suggest, I mean exactly what it says, to suggest removing it until we at least have a profile for it, which we do. There's an AU Core provenance profile. The proposed resolution is to change the requirement to support rev include from shall to should. And this was written as persuasive. That's how that was interpreted, that it's no longer mandatory. Richard, did you want to talk to your points?
I went looking for that profile of provenance and I didn't find it. So I thought that it should actually be removed. But given there is a profile of provenance, which I failed to find when I was looking,
Provenance.
I think I'm happy to withdraw my my issue. So it was all due to poor navigation on my part.
Okay. When that was procedurally, interesting question. At the time that the request to remove was made, there was voting had happened to 1400 approve that in the block. But I think let's take the vote now, because it has come to this technical design group on whether we will accept the proposed resolution to go from a shall to a should. Does everyone understand what that would be, or should I run through it quickly again?
A run through would be appreciated, Danielle.
Okay, no worries. So the draft of AU Core we've got has AU Core provenance in it. Oops, that's the wrong one. No, I've obviously gone off and done other things with my tabs. So there is an AU Core provenance profile. It is a should support, but not mandatory to support, as defined in our capability statement. But what you'll find underneath the profiles is there is a requirement for search to support the rev include provenance search parameter. And the ballot comment was raised to remove the mandatory requirement for this. And the proposed resolution here is to change that so that it isn't a shall and so that it's only a should, essentially in alignment with the requirement of the provenance profile. Is that clearer?
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. So is someone then happy to Any further comments or changes, or shall we vote on whether to accept that resolution? Sanjeev, your hand is up.
Sorry, a layman's question. What difference making from going from shall to should would make?
It means that you are encouraged to do so, but not required to do so.
Unmandatory.
Yes,
Or like
it's
must.
no longer mandatory. And that's the change. It's no longer mandatory to support.
Again, I saw on the slide may. What will be the difference between shall and may then? Probably I'm going into details too much, but
The difference between shall and may is we don't really even list may unless we think it's relevant. We can talk about it further. There is another provenance ticket coming up, which is actually to remove the provenance profile from AU Core R1. Because the provenance profile itself is should, I think the support for this search parameter should remain in line with that, with the intended use of what's described as the AU Core provenance profile. And if we make a later decision, which I think is coming up, oh, it's already up for vote as of this morning. If we choose to remove the AU Core provenance profile, we would also be removing this search parameter entirely, and this would trump the current change.
Places where we're using may, it's kind of like you're allowed to do this, but it's not a requirement of AU Core.
Yes, in general, we try to avoid may and try to use should, because that's a recommendation. It's just not something that is mandatory for you to do. So are we happy to treat this issue within the scope of what it is and then make the decision on how we deal with provenance, the profile as a whole, through that ballot ticket, which is out in AU Core Block Vote 12?
I'm happy to do that. This is, I think, can be summarized as saying, let's make the guidance on supporting this this search align with the guidance on supporting provenance, namely that both
Yes.
should be should, and that we will and so as that it's like a piece of making it consistent.
Yes, it is. That's a good way to put it, Richard. Any further comments or questions, or before we ask if someone is happy to motion? Okay. I'll ask if someone's happy to motion that we make this change as
I'll motion
described.
that. Richard.
Thank you, Richard. Is someone happy to second that?
I'm happy to second that, Landon.
Thank you, Landon. Sanjeev, I see your hand is
Yeah,
raised. Did you want to make a further comment?
yeah, just a question here. But from a conformance perspective, making shall to should would mean it's not it won't be checked as part of conformance. Am I right?
Probably. I can't comment on your conformance scheme, but it isn't a mandatory requirement in the AU Core IG.
If it's optional, it should not be checked as part of conformance. That's my understanding.
I don't control your conformance scheme.
Okay.
I can't say.
Yeah, I can answer this question. So if we are talking about internal tests, we are checking all options with shall, should, and may, and everything that marked as shall is mandatory, and you will fail conformance testing if you not support it. If you do not support something that marked as should, this test is marked as optional, and if it fails, it doesn't mean that you fail the conformance.
Okay, yeah, that was my question, Daniel. I mean, I'm sort of getting getting tripped between the word semantics of the word and the meaning, and I want to understand what it means purely from a conformance perspective, which is what Elias explained.
Take it with a grain of salt, though. That's the AU Core Inferno set that is provided as a guide. It is not a formal conformance scheme. So it's up to a conformance scheme to define what the requirements are, although obviously they would all inherit the shalls. And what they choose to do with the shoulds is, I guess it depends on their conformance scheme. But,
So you'll get
yeah.
a green tick. If you support it, you'll get a green tick. If you don't, you'll just get a, oh yeah, that's okay.
A skip, not a cross.
Yeah.
Sometimes conformance statements say, take that specification and tighten it up in these ways. So a conformance statement can say, take the specification and be more restricted. So you could find yourself in a situation where your particular conformance standard says, you know that thing there that says should? If you want to meet our conformance requirement, it's must. But that's part of the conformance definition as opposed to part of the standard specification.
Thanks, Richard. So I think, are we happy to continue with the vote on this to make this decision? Again, I will let people know we will be coming back to provenance and making a decision on the whole of provenance, again, in a consistent fashion, but this time bringing the profile in a later ticket that is just out now in AU Core Block Vote 12. So for this ticket, we already have someone who motioned and seconded. Are there any further comments before we put this to the vote? All right, I'll ask for people who oppose this resolution to raise your hands now using the reactions in Zoom. Okay, that's none. And I'd like to ask people who choose to abstain to now raise your hands in Zoom. Okay, we've got those coming through now on the count. Okay, that's 12. Thank you. And so then the motion is passed. And okay, that is all the refer to telecom items. Now, Heath, you've joined us, and we did have on the agenda to revisit individual pronouns and gender identity, but that now needs to be postponed because you've kind of missed Ruben, who was here at the beginning of the meeting. So ideally, I'll get in touch with you to confirm if you can make the 10th of May meeting, which will be where we will reschedule that too. And if you can't, we'll find another time if you can't make the 10th of May.
Yeah, it might have to be the 16th because Thursday's not good for me.
The 10th of May is a Friday.
Oh, then that's okay.
Next Friday. All right.
All good.
Okay, great. So far, both you and Ruben have verbally said they can make it. I'll double check with you via email, and then we'll send that out to the TDG again to let them know that these two items will be discussed on the 10th of May instead of today. All right. So let's go back to the order sort of that we had and talk about the other block votes. So this is the vote, the decisions that have not been referred to telecom that have passed through. So we had a number of block votes go out in between our last technical design group meeting and this one. And so we have block vote 3, which was about removing must support from the performer elements in AU Core profiles, and that has passed. There is a PR underway to be doing that. We also have block vote 4, which was about removing must support from the encounter element in AU Core profiles. That's also passed with 1 negative. And Gillian raised a query on that, which was why she voted negative, to better understand what the allergy intolerance encounter referred to. And Landon has provided that clarity with a comment on confluence. I won't make you read it all now, we don't have time, but it's there on that block vote if you're interested. We then also had block vote 5, which was removing must support from, oh, that's a typo, sorry. That should read removing must support from elements in location, practitioner, practitioner role, patient and organisation. And that also passed. So that is underway. Then we have block vote 6, which was related to search parameter changes. Now, out of that, which did pass, one of the items was removed from the block. And in fact, that's the one we just talked about and went through. And since that's passed, that's great. We can update with that. Block vote 7 was other substantive changes. So things that weren't about removing must support, but were about other things in relation to AU for patient and practitioner and location and practitioner role. This vote has passed, but we did remove one from the block that we went through. That was for 5050. And that was the one around the value sets and their visibility for individual pronouns and for gender identity. And we've addressed that one. The last block vote that we did before this meeting is block vote 8, and that was looking at editorial changes to things like the homepage, guidance, conformance pages, and also fixing one observation example. That's passed. And again, one item was removed from that block to be discussed in this meeting. And that's the one we just did on whether or not we have a standalone page for medication information guidance. And our decision was yes. So let's zoom past those and zoom past the revisit because we're not going to. And we've only got 12 minutes left and I want to give people time for that. And talk about our next items. So it's worth, I guess, saying now that if we look at this, so here's kind of where we are. We've now passed, I think in today, we've passed 48. That was a bit hopeful, that slide, actually. So we've now passed 48 votes. That leaves us with somewhere around 93 issues to go through. We did have scheduled May 16 as our final kind of resolution meeting. We're still going to aim for that, but we might need to have an additional meeting or two the next week to get through whatever is remaining. So this Friday, so tomorrow, was nominally sort of said, let's talk about ballot resolution, but it is still going to be targeted towards must support and obligation. So it's still a conformance Friday, but it is on must support and obligation. Thanks for the fix in the chat. Yeah, I really do need to fix that. I hadn't noticed that I decided it was the 16th of May, 2025. Oops, that's 2024 in case it's 2024. And then we're going to have a ballot meeting on the 10th of May. That's the one we've just referred the individual pronouns and gender identity to. And ideally, we'll also be able to, at that point, discuss and vote on some must support and obligation votes. But we'll also see what gets referred to telecom from the votes that went out this morning. So that's block votes 9 to 12 are out. There's less items in the set overall, only 27 issues for people to go through. Anything that comes there, as you look through, I just want to talk about the process a little. So we are doing the weekly e-votes where we're opening these on a Thursday. So the next set came out this morning. And then we close them the following Wednesday. Get an email. If you haven't gotten an email, if you're a member of the technical design group, get in contact with me and I can forward that to you. But they are available on the Confluence. And the results are scheduled for the following TDG calls. So the results of what's out now are scheduled for the 10th of May. So what we've been talking about today in our refer to telecoms is if you're looking through a set of items in a block vote, because they're in a block, because we've grouped these things together to make a decision on the whole set. But if you read through that block, and you think that an item here needs to be treated separately, what you should do is comment at the bottom of the Confluence page with the issue and why. That item, sorry? That item would then be made an individual e-vote, or it might just be scheduled for a call. If you think that it doesn't just need to be treated separately, but you actually think it needs a discussion, not just a separate vote, that's when you use refer to telecom. So I'll just go to a page now for what that might look like. If I just pick here. So this is block vote 11. This is out and available. And we have instructions here on what to do above it, and how to read this. And as you come through, and you might read these items and you might think this one in particular is actually doesn't belong in this set. You think it should be treated separately. Then you comment on the bottom of the page, you come down and you put a comment here. So if you think the item actually needs to come back to the technical design group, there are some things that need to be discussed that are in addition to what is actually in the item description and the proposed resolution. You think there's an additional perspective or reasons that haven't been taken into account, and you want to do what we call refer to telecom. So you want to hit that little button there, and then provide what that issue is and state what the talking points are, and provide enough detail that when we schedule the telecon and come to it, that you can then walk through what it is that you think that the technical design group needs to discuss before we can make a decision. Any comments on that kind of, on how what to do? All right, hopping back to this. So here's what's out. We've got 4 of these. There's all the substantive changes on AU Core Encounter that have been raised have been put into one block. The substantive changes to AU Core Allergy Intolerance, those that were remaining, we've already done the must support removals, I believe, for quite a few. And then we have the substantive changes to medication is block vote 11. And then block vote 12, which I referred to for provenance, are items that relate to like security and privacy, RESTful API, smart guidance, and provenance should be in there. I'll just confirm that. I hope I'm not sending people on a wild goose chase. Yes, there it is. AU Core provenance, there's the issue. It's in that block. Okay. So after this, there's still a set of issues to go through and that we need to work through. What's remaining, and this is sort of very tentative shaped here, is we're working through must support and obligation. And that includes the AU Core definition of that, and also the query that has been raised around whether we should add must support to the date time data type. That's been raised on a number of profiles that instead of supporting some set of the data types, that should actually be must support only on date time. So that needs to be worked through. There's substantive changes on AU Core immunization that are also still to be decided. We have some changes that were put forward around AU Core procedure and condition, and some of the observation ones. So smoking status, the vitals, and also the AU Core diagnostic result and pathology result. We've also got substantive changes for medication request. And then really a group of items to be considered for future use, which is where we're not saying no. What we're saying is that these can't be addressed in R1. Sometimes that's because of scope or consistency issues, and sometimes that's just due to timeframes and feasibility. But there will be a block coming out for us to consider which items we will be road mapping essentially to be reconsidered when we do R2 at the end of this year, I think, or early next year. We'll be doing a planning for what do we work on in the second release in AU Core. Anything else I need to cover in the last couple of minutes? No, I think that's it. Okay, fantastic. So I think that's what we've got sort of coming up for us. Still quite a bit to work through, but we're making good progress, and that's really excellent. And thanks everyone for coming today and working through and participating in those discussions. That's really important. I think we've come to some really good decisions based on the discussions in today, and also coming through and voting electronically. I'll leave that. Is there anyone that wanted to raise anything for our next meeting or ask a question before we close this session?
You mentioned there might need to be more meetings next week, I think.
Post 16th of May 2024.
Post 16th of May. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're likely to find out after what we'll know from the 16th there's going to be extra meetings after that. Thank you.
Yes. And I'll also clarify, thanks for raising that, Richard, that those dates are already existing TDG dates. So we're not adding additional meetings. It's just that we might be using one or two of the TDG meetings post that date to continue ballot reconciliation.
Thank you for that clarification.
All right. Any other questions? Or final comments? All right. Thanks,
Congratulations
everyone.
on a meeting well run.
Oh, we say that, and I was wondering why we were done, but that's because we skipped revisiting a couple of things. But still, we got through it, and it was really good work from everyone on the line. So I'm going to stop the recording here, and I'll see you all in our, hopefully, Conformance Friday, but definitely the 10th of May. Thanks, everyone.